Hey, a pleasant good evening, everybody. This is SteelFlyers and Joe Borek, and we're here for, I think this is our fifth edition, right, Steel, of the
You
JB,
got it.
as we're going to provide you with the latest and the greatest from the NFL, NHL, NBA, and also some World Junior Classic talk, and some talk on the Mets picking their top man, well, not top man, but second to top man, as their manager, as we get to that at the end of this show. But first and foremost, let's get into Steel, the NFL games of the week that have
Yeah.
impressed us thus far this week. Where right now, I would say a team that we kind of trampled on a little bit. You've still been high on them, but I've kind of rightfully so with how they played in the last couple of weeks. Now they moved to 8-6, taking care of the Panthers. Is the Buffalo Bills that won 31-14. Cam was all right in this game, 156, 1-1, 71
Yeah.
rushing with a touchdown.
Yep.
But Josh Allen was back to being Josh Allen, 3 touchdowns, only 1 INT. Still got pressured a little bit too much to my liking, but Singletary was fantastic out of the
Yeah.
backfield.
Yeah.
So this was kind of the Bills team you need to see if they want to beat that Patriots team in the division, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And first of all, hey man, how you doing? We're I see you got a little holiday cup going on there, and
Mm-hmm.
yep, there you go, cool. And we're approaching the festive season. Yep, there you go. There's the gritty. We're approaching the holiday season, and so we would like to thank everybody for hopping on and checking out the fifth volume of the JB and Steel Show. And I'll tell you what, there was some very interesting games that happened this past weekend, and there's some very interesting games that are still on the docket that haven't been played yet. But at any
And
rate,
then as we speak, the going into the third quarter, the Raiders is 10-0 over the Cleveland
Cleveland
Browns.
Browns, yeah, Cleveland Browns having Baker Mayfield is not playing in that game. I believe they're on their
So,
third.
Case isn't playing?
No, I believe they're on their third string. They signed Lodetta
Oh,
to the.
Nick Mullins.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, there you go. So that's who their
Yeah,
quarterback
that's the
is
dude
from.
that played in, if I'm not mistaken, isn't he the dude that played in San Francisco a couple? Played
Yeah.
a couple games in San Francisco.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Not that
Okay.
well though. He's definitely more of a third string quarterback.
Right. I think we had some major surprises this weekend too, where we saw, the likes of the Arizona Cardinals fall to the only team to ever lose a game who has a 10-win season loses to a team that has 1 win or less. First time ever, and the Cardinals managed to do that.
That makes it even worse because my biggest thing that I was going to say in this game is you just got spanked. Like, you didn't just lose. You got smoked by the defense.
Yeah, you got smoked.
Goff looked like the guy that he was picked first overall to be in that game.
Yeah, he did.
3 touchdowns, was pretty much perfect. But the big story of this game, only for 1 week, because he hasn't been this all season, we'll see what he does here on out, but was Craig Reynolds in the backfield just coming literally out of nowhere, having 112 yards on 26 rushes. He was the guy who was just a dog in that game, and they just kept feeding him the rock, and rightfully so. So he was the difference in that game, along with Goff playing more like you would want Jared Goff to play going forward for this Lions team, because obviously, right, everything's about the future for this Lions team, not about the present. So
exactly. So that, to me, that was a big shocker as well. Was not really expecting to see the worst team in every single statistical category going up against one of the best teams in every statistical category, and the Cardinals walk away kind of with their tail between their legs on that one. And so I believe that's their boo-boo game for the year, because they had a couple games there where Murray was not in, and they lost. I believe they were 2-1 the 3 games that he was out, right?
And then he was bad against the Rams when they lost to the Rams. Kyler was not good in that game.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, they've had some stinker games, plus the fact that Murray wasn't in there for 3 games as well, too, now. So, but seriously, though, they're still, aside from the Packers, which, man, that game there was, oh my gosh. But aside from the Packers, the Cardinals, I think, are one of the best teams in the league right now.
They're still in a good spot, but if I was doing like how Hockey Guy does his power rankings for hockey, where if you get a putrid loss, usually you're going to move down. I would definitely I would definitely be moving them down a couple pegs after losing to the Detroit Lions.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah, because now there's like a 3-way tie now for the 10-4 teams.
Exactly. Where also Baltimore competing at that high of a level with Huntley, and it also just shows me how good that team is. Where I think they would be ranked a little bit higher for me after being that close. Because even though that's a loss, when you don't have Lamar and you're playing a Packers team like the Packers are this year, Aaron Rodgers balled out even with the foot injury or the toe injury, excuse me. But I think that just shows that kid Huntley is a solid backup quarterback that you don't have to overcomplicate things for him and rely on him too much, and he could just do his thing. He could do his thing, and then you had him run for 73 as well, and then you had Latavius Murray do his thing a little bit. So I think he proved to be a solid backup, but also Aaron Rodgers proved that even with an injury, he's still Aaron Rodgers and can figure out a way to obviously get over the hump in the end.
It also says a lot, too, about the defenses on both sides of the ball here. Excuse me. And going into the playoffs, I think both of these defenses are for sure going to need to tighten up. Because when you allow 30 and 31 points like that, and you allow a backup quarterback to play that bloody well, look, and here's the other thing, too. Huntley was the backup quarter.
That game, pretty much, because he had 2 touchdowns thrown. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground. So that's like basically just a little bit less yardage on the ground than you would normally see Lamar have at 73. He basically played like a miniature Lamar Jackson.
That's what I mean. You know what I mean? And so it's like, all right, so the guy getting it done, okay. But to me, that was one of the other shockers as well. I thought that, I wasn't really sure about that game. I felt it was one of those games where I think Green Bay should have won that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely think with obviously the backup quarterback for Baltimore, if it was Lamar, I would say that's more of a flip the coin game for me. But with the backup quarterback in, I would definitely say that's a game I would have favored Green Bay. They figured out how to pull it out in the end. But that also shows me just how good of a team the Baltimore Ravens are to be able to stay that close without their best quarterback in the game. So
yeah, have to agree with you on that. You know what I mean? 100%. Also, hey man,
a terrible game was that Saints game.
I was just gonna say, how about the Dolphins now? What are they, 7 games now in a row they've rattled off?
I believe 6
games now they've rattled off to go to 7-7.
Or to get to 7-7, yeah. So unless if that's incorrect, that's what it's.
That makes sense.
No, it says so. Dolphins rally past Jets to extend winning streak to 6 games. This article I just saw. So yeah, that's what it was. Now I also think in this game, this wasn't even a game to me that Zach Wilson, I almost called him Josh Wilson, but Zach Wilson played very bad because he got sacked 6 times and was 13 for 23. This was like one of those games your quarterback didn't have much opportunity to exist to do much because he was just under pressure the entire game.
He was running for his life all game long.
Yeah. Where also the big thing for me with the Dolphins is even though he threw 2 picks, Tua, he's just figured it out in different aspects. He's also, you rely on the running game. Well, they have Gaskin, they have Duke Johnson, who played like amazing yesterday, had over 100 yards. So, I mean, I think if you can just kind of manage the game like he's been doing in these last 6 weeks, you're going to be a plenty fine team with the Dolphins because they obviously have, I don't know what they are necessarily on paper statistically, but of late, it's not great to give up 24 to the Jets, but of late, I thought their defense has been much better in this 6-game winning streak.
Getting there.
So if you can if you keep building defensively, and you can keep having Tua just do what he can do. And obviously, he can run a little bit too. He didn't have to in this game because you had Gaskin and Johnson do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think they're moving in the right direction, and this team is definitely taking the right steps in the right direction with Brian Flores down there and Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback. Where I don't think you have to think about that if he keeps playing at this level.
Agreed, 100%. And props to the Dolphins, man, for cranking off 6 games. Well, we'll see how this goes. I don't know how it's going to go further for them or if they're going to be able to, because it's going to be really tight in the AFC. And with them being at 7-7 right now, they're in the hunt. You know what I'm saying? But I know the other game you were going to talk about too, and they
kept the Ravens at 10 points.
Yeah, they did. That's right. They did.
It was 10 points. Yeah, they kept the Ravens at 10 points. They also early in the season ended up beating the Patriots, and I think it was the first game. Yeah, the first game, 17-16, which was an impressive early win. For the Dolphins team, and then they went on the losing skid, of course, until they now went on this really impressive winning skid that started with the Houston Texans. But I think that Ravens win is by far their most impressive win of the season.
I agree 100%. And I know the other game you were going to talk about too, and that's the. Boy, is that a big giant goose egg there for the Buccaneers? Was that Tom Brady I saw on the sideline throwing a tablet and getting all excited and upset and yelling and screaming? Was that what I saw? Was I mistaken on that?
No, and this was one of the rare games Ronald Jones actually played well this season and did well compared to Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette did not have a good game.
No, this was one of the rare games he did poor this season, but that was a terrible game. I mean, I have to admit, I didn't watch much of that game because it was a boring game. It was a game that nobody wanted to pay attention to because a game that ends 9-0. What like that? There's no interest in that game much at all, unless if you're a fan of either of those teams.
And and I know some people that are fans of both of those teams. And so even they were saying that, this game was pretty much of a stinker game anyway. I mean, it was only 3 field goals. What? So it's not like there was a whole outpouring of offense here in this game. So just surprising though that Buccaneers dropped down to 10-4 now. So that's making that NFC race a little bit tighter now.
Yeah. No, I agree. But as we wrap up our NFL talk, I think we obviously have to talk about previewing the games. It's rare we get to put out the show in the morning on Tuesday.
I know.
So we'll just give our predictions for the Bears and Vikings
game. It's also rare, too, that we get to have 2 Monday games, even though we're kind of in the middle of one now already.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, true. Which the one that we will predict right now is the Chicago Bears versus the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah. That is in Chicago. We'll just do a quick prediction of this. They're on a losing streak too, 1-4 in their last 5. The Vikings are 3-2 in their last 5. I'm gonna go with the Minnesota Vikings as my predictor in that one.
Yeah.
Even though
I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. Bears not playing very well. Vikings coming off that big win there against Pittsburgh. So I really think that they're going to be able to. And this is another. Although, here's the thing, though, okay? This is a Monday night game here, but it's not in Minnesota.
It's in Chicago.
It's in Chicago, right? So usually Minnesota doesn't win on Monday nights at home. Key phrase being at home.
Yeah, which they're not. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I think I'm going to lean. Oh, gosh, if any of my in-laws hear me say this, I will be disowned, but I'm going to have to lean Vikings on this one. I mean, go Bears, but, yeah, the Vikings, I think, are definitely going to win this one.
Yeah. We also didn't point out your quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, passed Phillip Rivers to move into 5th in the all-time passing yards.
Yeah, 63,000 yards.
When you beat the Tennessee Titans 19-13. But
Yeah.
now we're getting back to previewing the games where the Washington football team plays the Philadelphia Eagles. It's tough to pick this game because there's multitudes of guys going out for each team. Like, let me pull up the Eagles right now.
And both teams are at 6-7. Okay. And let's face it, for the most part.
Though. Well, yeah, but I'm talking about like not just the premise of the teams. Like, there's so many guys. Like
Yes.
the football team had so many guys out, and then now we're getting extra guys out, like Dillard Dickerson, since we waited a couple extra days for the game. And Dickerson was a guy that really has filled in well on our offensive line. So now you have to go to the next person. So like that gives a big hole in the offensive line once you have that next person. So that's kind of tough when the football team defense has been solid this year, more inconsistent recently, but still solid this year.
Relatively.
So I think that's something we have to look for. We also have to look for Jalen Hurts' ankle. That has nothing to do with the COVID protocols, but his ankle and if he's going to be active or not. Because this was reminiscent of the last game where you're kind of like trying to give it to the last second of like who's going to start. And then you're probably having to be a game time decision and see if it's him or Gardner. But obviously, with the Washington football team, they might not have either of their guys, their top two options, because obviously Fitz is done with his IR with the hip, and then you have Kyle Allen is on the COVID protocol, and then also Taylor Heineke's on the COVID protocol. So unless if they can check out by tomorrow, you won't have either of them. Shermer, who went to my high school, was LaSalle High School's quarterback. Could be active for the
hey buddy,
and then Garrett Gilbert, who has experience, who got signed, would probably end up being the starter. But like it's going to be interesting to see because there's so many guys on the COVID protocol. And then J.D. McKissick has a concussion when it comes for Washington. Curtis Samuel's supposed to be out the hamstring. So, I mean, the list goes on and on. There's Center Larson's out with protocol, Lucis. Just because at this current stage, Washington has like 2 times the people more than that out on protocol right now, I would have to lean us. Also, it's in the link. So with that being a factor, I would have to lean to the Eagles, even if Minshew's in, because I saw Minshew already just manage a game well enough. Where also, I don't think they were going to overcomplicate the playbook. I think they're just going to keep doing what they were doing. Where the Eagles have figured out that running the football with the guys we have on this team has worked effectively to space out and open stuff, and then you can pass the football more effectively from running the football. I don't know why it took them the first 6 weeks to figure it out, but since they figured it out, it's been a heck of a lot better. So
there's a few other teams, Joe, I think that could get that same message too. If you run the ball, it'll open up the passing game. What do you know?
No, but it's been a lot better, so I would lean the Eagles in.
You're gonna lean Eagles on that
because they have less guys out.
Yeah. See, to me, this is tough too. Yeah, this is tough too because with the amount of players both on the Washington team and also on the Eagles team, with it being a prime time, with even if Minshew starts, I'm gonna still have to lean Eagles because at least that is, of all of the quarterbacks that potentially could start for both teams, he's the most experienced one other than, Jalen, obviously. He has more experience than Jalen, but you would obviously want Hurts in there, but if he can't go because of his ankle, right?
Yeah, well, Gilbert's not as experienced as Minshew, and then Shermer hasn't had any NFL starts. And he's been on
that's what I'm talking about. So that makes Minshew the most experienced quarterback to put on the field. And if he's playing for my team, that's who I'm picking.
I agree with that. So I would definitely roll with the Eagles with that. We can now move into this game is quick for me. I don't think the Seahawks are going to beat the Rams in LA. I'm definitely going with the Rams on this one. I think the Rams are going to be able to pull out the win on this one and be able to go to 10-4.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, ever since Ever since Russell Wilson has been back, it's been a slow road for him. It hasn't been all sunshine and berries for him since he's come back from his thumb surgery. Okay. And I really feel that they basically got into a hole that they were not able to climb out of because of him missing all that time during the season. And now they're just not able to catch up. And so I'm also with you on that. I'm going with Rams on this one in LA.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree with that. We'll move into now, though, as we finished out our NFL news, we'll move into the NHL, as it was announced today that the Montreal Canadiens joined the rest of the slew of teams that have been postponed after the holiday break, as well as the Columbus Blue Jackets, for adding teams to the protocol. And then for everybody that does not know at this point, if you live under Patrick Starr's rock, all the cross-border games are postponed in the NHL as well until after the holiday break. Yeah, people that love SpongeBob will get that reference. I mean, I think for the cross-border, that was a very wise decision because it allows guys to be with their family for the holidays, where that was the biggest concern. And Elliot Friedman highlighted that on Sportsnet, and I agreed with him. You don't want to be stuck in the wrong country and not be able to be around the people you love at this time of the year. So I think that for that premise, that makes sense. And I also think, like we talked about before the podcast, there's a 5% chance at most that they're going to the Olympics at this point, when you then have the 2 weeks there to make up the scheduled game that you're pushing back now. And I think they designed that purposely where it would be unfortunate if they couldn't go, but it's not like they can't just go to the next Winter Olympics and then just make up for not being able to go to this one there. So
I'm with you on that for sure, and it's going to be a real shame. This was something that the players were really pushing for, especially in this new CBA, that they wanted to be able to have the option to go to the Olympics. Okay, and this was one of the things that helped to sell the CBA to the players, was the ability to play in the Olympics. Do you know what I mean? And so it's very sad that it looks like they're not going to probably go to the Olympics this year.
I think players realize, though, at this point, it makes more sense not to, because if you're in China, you're stuck for 3 to 5 weeks.
Because you have to follow quarantine and all that. Yep.
Yeah, that's not good for his mental health. McDavid's hinted at that not being good, and he's obviously kind of the spokesperson of really being the top echelon guy in the league. I feel like it's just a trickle down effect at this point, where Pierre LeBrun hinted at it on Twitter that it's not going to happen, but it's not a final decision. Also, Spinning Chicklets kind of hinted at it as well, Whitney and Biz. Where I'm sure Biz has even more insight now since he works for TNT, so he probably even knows more people to get information from. Right. But I think it's definitely pushing in that direction where they're not gonna be going to the Olympics, which is unfortunate. But like I said, you can make it up in the next Olympics. You can watch, like we'll get to at the end of the show, the juniors, but you can watch the World Juniors and the young guys representing their countries. So I mean, at least there's that, and then you can see some guys that wouldn't normally get the opportunity AHL, or some guys that play overseas in the SHL and the Dell that are from America get to go represent their countries, that are from Canada get to go represent their countries. There's always a positive within a negative as well.
No, see, and that's why I like it, man. That's why I love your insight about this kind of stuff, Joe, because you always do kind of find that positive, even though there's some type of negative that's going on here. And I'm not sure, but I don't know if I know anything about the ladies, if they are going or not going. I'm not sure. I haven't heard or seen anything about that yet, and I do follow them on Twitter.
The Olympics, I heard from watching something when it came up on YouTube on a Sportsnet clip. They mentioned how they're still forming the rosters, so I would presume that they're still planning to go.
You mean to the Olympics or to the World Juniors?
The Olympics, because they were saying how they're still doing, like, the coaches are like how they're doing, like, all the roster selection.
Oh, okay, great.
All that framework. So I think that's still on track. But it would all depend on their ultimate decision at that point too. If people start expressing, the game's top players start expressing their doubt,
Yeah.
Then you have to see where
Yeah.
where it gets complicated. Yeah,
Yep.
but
No, I just wanted to mention that because obviously, you know, they're going to be playing hockey as well too, or they're going to be interested in playing. I mean, you know, and I'll be watching their hockey games if they're going to be playing in the Olympics. You know, if the men aren't going to be there, I'll be watching the women. But I'm assuming that if the men aren't going to be there, more than likely the women aren't going to be there either.
I would have to presume, but who knows? Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see. Yeah.
Also, I wonder if teams would just pull out at a certain point if the COVID rate got too high, because Canada, there's a thing called the Spengler Cup, which is over in Switzerland, which is another foreign tournament, where Team Canada in that pulled out, which that would have showcased some talent that would have potentially became Team Canada if they did not send the NHLers. But it made sense because they don't want to risk anything at this point, so they pulled out of that foreign tournament. So like, I would wonder if teams at a certain point would just say, we're just not going to we're just going to not compete in this year's Olympics at that point, because we don't want to send anybody to get stuck, whether it's an AHL or an ECHL independent league, like whoever it is. We don't want anybody to get stuck.
And I think that's kind of, I mean, you have to listen to what the players are asking for. You can't force them to go. You know what I'm saying? And if they're expressing concerns, then I mean, I'm sure that deep down the owners are cheering, you know, because they're not sending their you know, talent and their assets away to go potentially get hurt or sick or get trapped over there for 5 or however many weeks, you know. So I imagine that the owners are probably secretly cheering, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. But another thing, as we flip more to the NHL side of things and not the Olympics, is I think a big positive thing, the hockey guy, I watch a lot of his YouTube content because he puts out good stuff. He pointed out is some guys that would have never got a chance this early, i.e. Jack Drury for the Carolina Hurricanes, that's kicking butt in his first couple of games. And then also Austin Czarnik to revive his career, who is gotten a chance again with Bridgeport, and then played really well down there in the Isle system. Played great and destroyed the Phantoms, the game that I was at, behind the net. And then he's been playing well for the Islanders as well in his couple of games. So it's nice to have that chance. Dakota Joshua, who's a former ECHLer, he's kind of finding his groove, being a guy that can score at the lower line level and also add any, basically he'll fight anybody for his teammates type level to his game as well.
Yeah, man. Those are always good guys.
So I think you're seeing guys, because of this, get to be able to prove themselves sooner. And another flip side of that is, of course, if certain guys are doing as good as, like, say, a Drury, if there's a veteran that Carolina thinks they can trade out to get more assets that they need, or just to let that kid play and then grab more picks so they can add more younger assets into an already solid farm system they have with their already stacked team, then you can do that as well, and it just opens the world and doors of possibilities. So
exactly. And so here's the thing, though. Now we did mention this, I believe, briefly, that they've halted all cross-border games, and they have been postponing a lot of games now, as far as between now and the Christmas break. There still are some games that are going to be played. I believe there's a few games that are going to be played that are on for tonight. The Minnesota-Dallas game is going to be played tonight. And then as far as we know, the Washington Capitals and the Flyers game and the Tampa Bay-Vegas game are still on for tomorrow. That's Tuesday the 21st. And then I believe that's it until you get to the 23rd. And then there's
Yeah, because Wednesday's a list of all postponed games.
And then there's 5 games allowed there. And those are pretty much all the teams that are either playing tonight or tomorrow. So it's Philly and Pittsburgh, Washington against the Islanders, Dallas against Chicago, and Tampa Bay against Arizona, and the Kings against Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Where when it comes to this evening, it's going to be interesting. The Minnesota Wild are 7-2-1 in their last 10, where in comparison, the Dallas Stars are more mediocre at just a 5-on-5. The Wild, to me, have been one of the more exciting teams all season.
Oh, for sure.
And I kind of just been rolling with them in general. So I feel like I'm just going to roll with them, even though they're on the road. The Stars haven't been as consistent of late. They've been trending in the wrong direction lately. So now they're back to only 2 games over 500. Excuse me.
Exactly.
So I feel like the Wild are going to be able to figure this out and get their wins. With the Wild are expected to have Spurgeon and Greenway out, where the Stars are expected to have Kiviranta and then, of course, Tanner Kiro out, who took the big hit. So we hope he can be fine and everything works out. Oh no, was that Kiviranta? Which one of those two took the hit? One of those two took the massive hit from Brett Conley.
Yeah, I think it was Kiro.
That was Kiro.
Okay. Kiro, yeah, it was Kiro. They did say that he is concussed, but that everything is.
Yeah, correct. It was Kiro. Yeah.
Right. He was concussed, and that he is okay. He's still in the hospital. Okay, but he is okay, and moving extremities and all that other stuff. But they did say he is concussed.
Yeah. Well, that was a blind side. Yeah, that was definitely a blind side.
Oh my! That qualifies as a woo hit. And if you don't know what a woo hit is, Ronnie Lott explained what a woo hit is. And Ronnie Lott used to be the Hall of Fame safety for the multiple Super Bowl winning 49ers, famously played without a chunk of his finger missing, would hit you so hard that the audience and the crowd would go, woo. And you could hear that. Can you imagine 65,000 people going, woo?
Yeah.
Well, just imagine 20,000 people going, woo. That's a woo hit. Yeah. All right. That's what that was. And it was legal, but, oh, man, I'll tell you what.
I don't think it was legal. I think got a major for it.
I don't think so. I could be wrong. I don't think there was penalty. Was there?
Interference. Yeah, he got interference.
Oh, he did get interference. Yeah. All right. Okay, well, it's almost like.
And then the suspension will cost Conley also $70,000, which is nothing for a hockey player.
Okay. All right. Well. Yeah. Okay, but man, but yeah, Kiro will be. They're saying that he is concussed and will be okay. As far as this game, the Minnesota Wild against Dallas Stars, Minnesota have been playing one of the hot. I mean, they're one of the hottest teams going right now. They only have 8 regulation losses. They've been able to get a point in a couple of games, but for the most part, 19-8-2 for 29 points to. For 29 games played for 40 points to lead the Central. And what's really crazy is that I really liked Minnesota going into this year, and I really felt that they took a step last year by playing Vegas very well in the first round of the playoffs. And so I think they've continued down that road. They've gotten much better play from their other lines. Zuccarella's been playing better. You know what I mean? They've just been playing. That the team's just been playing better. They've been getting good goaltending and things of that nature too. Plus, the rookie of the year on the team signed a big contract and has been playing really, really well too. So I gotta say Minnesota all day on this one.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think this game is going to be Minnesota's been one of the better teams all season, and I think that's just going to continue to stick. As for tomorrow, the early game is us against the Flyers at home against the Washington Capitals.
Capitals, yeah.
Capitals are going to have Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Mantha, Oshie, and Wilson, according to this out.
Yeah.
We have, Allison's out more in the minors, but it hasn't reported here.
Right. Is
And
Frost still out?
Yeah, this also has
We have
Hayes is on COVID protocol.
Hayes. We have 2 players and 3 staff.
Yeah,
the Flyers.
So
the Flyers
on
do.
COVID protocol. Frost has been on COVID protocol. Willman's on COVID protocol. So hopefully day to day, hopefully Brass, since he's day to day, will be able to play in that game, so he can slide in.
And I did see that Hart practiced today as well too.
Yeah, that was an undisclosed illness. That wasn't even known if that was COVID, or obviously it doesn't seem so because he probably wouldn't have been back as quickly. So that was something else. But
yeah,
if with the way that, even though he looks like he's playing injured, he's had a couple assists of late and still obviously adds more of a presence on the ice defensively than anybody that would have to sub in for him if Brass is also out. It's going to be a little bit tougher without the 3 deep at center when you have Coots, G, and then Hayes. But if you can bring Brass in with the way he's been playing, that would definitely help a little bit.
Yeah.
Cates has played well in his first a couple games. I would feel bad for Jackson Cates because he keeps having to travel back and forth every 5 seconds.
I know.
But he's actually, this is the best he's looked, I think, these couple games. He's not that he looked bad last year in his cup of coffee, but like he looks like he's really matured from his time in the AHL this season to actually look more comfortable at the NHL level. If you can put him in, you can kind of slide people up, maybe put Patty on the third line, or you put Jackson on the third line. You have to pick which one you want to put on or 3C. At that point, I would honestly think the way Brown is just more of a 4C, and the way that Cates plays 3C level in the AHL, at that point, I would just say leave the fourth line as it is because it's played well with Patrick Brown.
Yeah.
And then just slide Cates into the third line, because it's not like you have to keep the lines you go into a game with once you're in the game. We see coaches change the lines all the time. So if it didn't work the first 2 shifts, then you would just flip that line anyway to something else. So it's not like it's the end of the world if you moved him up a line and he didn't play well, you would move him down. The other reason I think that could be the case is we've already seen Yo move multiple people up.
Well, here's the thing, though. Frankly, I don't really think this is going to matter much because
we might play short forward if we have to.
And frankly, I think Washington's basically just going to step all over the Flyers. I don't even. It doesn't matter how much Carter Hart stands on his head. It doesn't matter. As soon as there's a little bit of adversity, this team shrinks into a little corner and runs away. They don't know how to push back. I mean, they did for 1 or 2 games here and there, and that's great. But you're doing that against the bottom teams, right? So these are the games you should be winning.
Vegas, other than Vegas,
right? Minus Vegas, but these are the games you should be winning, not struggling to win, not being taken to overtime to try to get a point out of a game or so. I mean, come on, these are the bottom team. You should be winning these games. You know what I'm saying? So, like. This is kind of where I'm at with the Flyers this year. They're going to win some games, yep, but they're probably going to win, or they're probably going to lose more of the games they're going to win. And quite frankly, I think it's just basically a train wreck until we get to the trade deadline to see what we can unload. And then it's going to be, okay, what's going to happen here at the end of the season? Because you're going to either probably not have the coach, and you're probably either not going to have half or most of the players that are on the roster right now, or something.
Yeah,
I mean major changes are going to happen.
That obviously depends, like Boudreaux said with the Canucks. If you can get things going from here on out, that changes that changes the tides of your season.
Okay, all right, Joe, I get you, but let me ask you a question, buddy. Let me ask you a question, okay? Why is it that Provorov is still on the power play then? That to me shows that they still don't get it. the coaching
they
staff
don't have
still doesn't get it.
Who else are you going to put on the power play? Do you want to put Sanheim consistently on the power play?
I mean,
he has been better now. Now, don't get me wrong. Travis Sanheim has kind of been the defensive version of Lindblom, where ever since Mike Yeo has come in, he's actually played the game that you want him to play all along and be more aggressive offensively, because that's what he did the entire time coming up through juniors and the AHL level. And then he kind of lost that under AV at the end there, where he was playing on his heels, where now he's playing on his toes again. So I think if that can happen, I would switch him with Provy, to be honest. And then the only good thing Keith Yandel does at this point is the second power play unit.
Okay, but that's basically what he was brought in to do. So why isn't he doing it?
That's true, but like you and Lance like kind of hinted at, but like he hasn't ever been like this bad at 5-on-5. Like right, this year he's making putrid turnovers that are leading to just goals that are like really bad in the neutral zone. Where before it usually was like he'll make mistakes like the scout thing was on him. He'll make mistakes in the defensive zone that lead to bit where he's making mistakes all over more this year that are leading to bad results, which is not something you typically have seen from Keith Yandel.
It's like he turned into the Braun of the year before. He's this year's Braun, right?
Yeah, well, this year Justin Braun's been our best defenseman, probably. Honestly, to be quite honest. So
and the fact that we're saying that just makes me have it. It brings it right up to here.
Well, I would say that defenseman has been the guy that I just mentioned ever since he took over.
Yeah.
I would say Sanheim has looked like our best defenseman because he's played like the way that I thought he should be playing to begin with. But when it comes to the Caps, I mean, it's going to be interesting because with the people they have out, they don't have much offense that is not named Alexander Ovechkin because Lars Eller only has 14 points. Sprong has been very good of late, so you have to watch Daniel Sprong. He's pesky against the Flyers all the time from his Penguins days and even days. But like, I think the big guy though that doesn't have a lot of offense yet, but is young, that I think the Flyers have to watch out for because he's a big boy at 6'5". They don't have guys to match him as much, other than if you're named Zach McEwen, or Ristolainen. Is Alexi Protas, who plays now second line C because of the people that are out. So I think he's a guy you have to watch. They have a little bit more jam in their lineup, as their current head coach would like to say, which is Scarbosa, who's usually in the AHL. Yeah. He's kind of one smaller guys, but that pisses you off. Snively also can get under your skin from watching him with the Hershey Bears. He's a guy that never got his shot because of his size at 5'9". But we saw, I'm not saying he's going to be this guy, but we saw a guy that got drafted in late rounds that never got a shot until eventually with the Coyotes was Connor Garland, of course, who he was undrafted Snively at 5'9". And I think Garland's actually 5'8". We'll see what he's able to do. But I think if you can limit AV if you can limit Ovi and Carlson from the back end, you have a chance against this team because their goaltending's been good this year with Samsonov and Vanacek, but at times those guys have let in the young goaltender goals where they're still obviously like coming into their prime, and Vanacek now 25, Samsonov 24 in the beginning of their prime ages. So like, I think if you can play more so like we played the Golden Knights, and obviously like you played New Jersey, if you played them like you played the Devils and just kind of put your foot down each period, but I don't see that necessarily happen. If you play them more like you played the Golden Knights, you have a chance against this team because their scoring's really limited with the players they have out.
Well, I'm with you on that, but they are, as a team, they're 5th in goals for and 6th in goals against. Okay.
Oh yeah. I completely agree with that, but a lot of that's because with Evgeny Kuznetsov,
agreed,
Oshie,
agreed, 100%.
Or injured.
I agree, but they're still tied with Carolina as tops in the Metro with 43 points. Okay. And Washington has found a way to get points in games. Okay. So this is one of those games where it's probably either going to go to overtime and it's going to probably go to a shootout. Either that or Washington's just going to step all over the Flyers. I agree that, look, Philadelphia always has a chance. But
I'm also all right with that because at this point, like the Ottawa game, like the Montreal game's a game you really take advantage of. Ottawa is one of the more push the pace, actually good offensive teams. Their problem is they're just not a full put together team yet. They're still in the last like year and a half, 2 years before they really probably take that jump. But they have a lot of really. You got the Norrises, Batherses, the Stutzler. Like they're not like Montreal who have a bunch of their talented guys out and have half of the Laval Rockets playing for their franchise. So like that's a different degree there. I wasn't too mad going to overtime with them because I have seen just how good they've actually been and just had like we beat them tough losses. Like they've had a lot of those close losses this year where Montreal is a team that you have there's no excuse. Well, like that's the game that there's no excuse there. Exactly. Where New Jersey I just look at as a bigger win because they're the Florida Marlins of the Flyers, where like they just don't play the Devils well all the time for some reason. Where then they're able to spank them in that game. But I think if you can just kind of limit the two studs in Ovi and Carlson, they have a chance in this game. But I would put this game at a 60 percentile to the Capitals. But I would say it's 60-40 with the way that the Capitals have that many people out.
If Samsonov is in net, okay, then I'm going to go...
I feel like they're both
80-20. If Samsonov is in net, I'm going to go 80-20 Capitals. If Samsonov is not in net, I'm going to go 70-30 Capitals.
Okay, I feel like they're fairly even goaltenders, Vanacek and Samsonov. They both played 16. It seems like the Caps feel they're fairly even goaltenders with how much they played. They literally played them both even this far. And which there's no problem with that because then you just pick out who takes the reins at a certain point once you go on your run to the playoffs. But you can go 70. I think I'll stick with 60-40 just because of the people. If they had backs from Oshie, don't get me wrong. If they had all those people, I would think we were going to get killed. But I think this is the time you could take advantage of the Capitals because of the people they have out of the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you at all on that. Not disagreeing with you at all, but I just think the Flyers are going to lose more games than they're going to win. And when we saw when they went into the meat of their schedule, which was basically the whole first part of the schedule where they played almost all the top teams. I mean, they had the hardest schedule in the league, and they just crumbled. They are just, I mean, it cost them a coach, an assistant coach. You know what I mean? So
this is true, but it's all about making it up when you have an easier schedule, which we do other than this.
Agreed. But
but the Flyers going forward had some easier games, had an easier schedule. If you can get points there, you'll be in a better spot. But it all depends. I mean, this team actually, I mean, for most of the times in my lifetime, the Flyers have been a second half team. Normally, like Zach and I have talked about that on PlayStation a couple times, but we haven't been a team that normally I'm like, oh my god, the first half of the season has been absolutely disgusting. Everything. Out of 10, once January hits at a certain point is when the Flyers are like, oh, you know what, guys, we figured out that we're a great team, and then it's like, you know what, guys, we know how to actually. Where like that's happened so many times in the past, whether it's when Lavi's coached. Whether it's when even Hack coached that one season, we ended up making it with him the second time. Like there's been just runs you went on where, like I said before, we've lost 10 games in a row 2 times before and made the postseason. We won 10 games in a row one time and didn't. So this team has a very odd history of how they're able to
Yeah, that would be putting it mildly.
accomplish things. But when it comes to these two teams, similarly to how we said with Washington, but the Vegas Golden Knights and the Tampa Bay Lightning are both performing at a very high clip. With people out on the COVID protocol as well. Mark Stone is day to day, so maybe he'll be able to go.
Yeah.
Martinez is out. Patrick was skating, but I don't think he's supposed to be back yet. But I would have to say on home ice, I would be leaning, especially with the Golden Knights also playing fantastic this season, obviously. That factors in, but I would be going with the Golden Knights on this one.
Of the games that are out there, this was the one of the ones that I felt was probably one of the games to watch for this coming week. This was one of those games that we talked about on the Off the Ball Hockey Show as one of the games to check out, because this is what I felt what the Stanley Cup was supposed to be, or what everybody thought it was going to be last year, but it just wasn't, right? Okay, and so that's why I think this matchup is going to be a must-watch game. This is probably going to be a very physical game, and I'll tell you what, I don't know about you, man, but I'm going to be staying up to watch this game. Okay, I'm on the East Coast, and I'll be staying up to watch all of this game for sure. I've been watching a lot of West Coast games, like on the condensed game side. You know what I mean? Because I have the ESPN app and all that other stuff, and I subscribe to all that Plus and all that. So I get all these games, and I've been watching a lot of these West games. You know what I mean? So I felt that this was one of the games to watch for this week, because it was the Stanley Cup that could have been, should have been, what everybody thought was going to be, and it just wasn't. And so I still think Tampa Bay is gonna prevail in this game. I just can't get past Vasilevsky. He just is too good. He's just too good. And he's putting up the same kind of numbers that he was putting up last year. And so I just can't see anybody stopping that Vasilevsky train again this year.
Well, I do think the team they're playing is the best team that has the chance to dethrone the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, because of how they play physically and how they can match Tampa Bay no matter what, because Tampa Bay can either play that physical game or they can play that run and gun game.
What the Knights do.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
Like this is the year that if the Knights keep trending in the right direction, I'm not ready to predict it yet, but eventually on one of these shows, I probably will say that they will be my Stanley Cup favorite.
Who, the Knights?
So. Yeah, they're trending towards that direction.
Okay,
especially because I'm waiting for Leonard to be the Leonard I know he can be.
Yeah, we haven't seen that yet.
And then as soon as that happens, I'm really going to be bought in on the Golden Knights. So
yeah, I'm with you.
And also, you got Jack freaking Eichel that's coming back. So I mean, that is like Kucherov coming back for the Tampa Bay. Like, you have one of the better.
Okay, well, so there you go. So you got Jack Eichel potentially coming back for the Vegas Golden Knights, and you have Kucherov potentially coming back for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe this is going to be the Stanley Cup for this year.
Yeah, and then you got Point coming back prior to
that, right? You know, so hey, and some of the Golden Knights have been coming back from being injured as well. You know what I mean? So, hey, but I'm still looking for Tampa Bay on this one. Okay. I do agree. I do agree with you, though, that Vegas has definitely improved, even from last year, I think. But I still think Tampa Bay is still the team to beat. They are still the king of the hill, and until you knock them off, I got to go with Tampa Bay.
Well, last and not least, we have a couple games on Thursday evening, as Steele said. One of them is our Philadelphia Flyers, the Battle of Pennsylvania in Pittsburgh, against the Pittsburgh Penguins, where they seem to actually play Pittsburgh better sometimes than in the Wells Fargo Center. Yeah, so Since I just got done saying this team doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense and they're playing Pittsburgh on the road, that they tend to play them a lot better, I'll go with loss.
Still without Malkin, I believe they're still going to have a couple players on the protocol list as well. Pittsburgh, yeah.
Yeah, they should still have a couple people on the protocol list.
Although here's the thing, though. Kasperitis, or not Kasperitis. Gosh, Kasperitis. What's his name? I can't think of him.
Kapanen.
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 Yeah. Kapanen has been playing really well. Jeff Carter has been playing really, really well. Are they going to have Gensel is going to be back? Is Gensel going to be back? If he's back,
it's still no. I don't know about yet. It still says he's injured with the upper body, according to this report, but maybe. And then Boyle's day to day, according to this. Brian Rust, it still says, is out with the lower body injury. So they're missing a couple of guys, just like the Flyers are still going to be missing. Probably Morgan, unless if Frost can come off of protocols, and then you have Willman on COVID protocol. Ellis is, of course, still injured. Hayes joined the COVID protocol
today.
So,
yeah. I still have to lean the other side of the state. I still have to go with the Pittsburgh side. I still just think, Flyers do play them better historically inside Pittsburgh, but I just don't see it. I mean, it could be, and the last game was a close game. Back in November, the Penguins did squeak out a win, 3-2. You know what I mean? But I just think Penguins have been playing a lot better at this part in the season than what the Flyers are playing. And I just feel it's going to be a Penguins.
I think Pittsburgh's been playing a much better season overall. I agree with that. I do think the Flyers, though, you have some of the same guys that have had success in that stadium. I think when you have comfortability, I heard baseball players talk about it, not as much hockey, but like when you know you're good in that stadium, you do tend to play looser sometimes.
And they know
it kind of gets your bones going a bit, and then
I'm with you.
So I feel like that's why I'm going to give us a little bit of a slight lean in that one. Dallas
of the two games, Pittsburgh and Washington, I would say they'd have a better chance against Pittsburgh than they do against Washington.
The reason I'm giving them the chance against Washington is because the people out, not because of
okay.
But I think this is the game I'll give. Actually, I don't know, because the Blackhawks, they lost 2 in a row, but they're 4-4-2. They've been all right over late. I think I would still have to go with the Stars at Blackhawks, lean that one with Jake Oettinger in net, who obviously everybody knows, it's no secret how much I love that dude. So I'll go with the Dallas Stars.
Well, he basically was the one that got Hudobin to get out on waivers. So the fact that he's played so well, so I have to go Dallas on that one as well over Chicago, even though it's in Chicago.
Yeah, and then the next game that would be the 9:00 game that night would be the expected starters would be Scott Wedgwood, who's really started finding his way with the Arizona Coyotes in net, and then Andrei Vasilevsky, of course, had a few ticks of success with the New Jersey Devils. Wedgwood, but more runs. Where this season, record-wise, he's on the Arizona Coyotes, so throw that out the window. But against them, he has a .294 and a 90.269 save percentage, so that's pretty darn good for being the netminder for the Arizona Coyotes.
And you know what? I think we're probably going to see an Elliott in net for this one.
Maybe, yeah, we could do that. And then also Vizmelka, his goals against is going up a bit, but again, he's on the Arizona Coyotes. I still think, like JJ pointed out when we had a broadcast with them, he's been good this year. It's his first year from the Czech Republic. You're going to see bumps in the road at times, but I think they got good goaltending, which is a good foundation to obviously start with. You also got Prosvetov and others down there in the minors, so they got a good foundation there. But for this year, yeah, they're not a competitive team against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I just wanted to shoot them a bone with some success rate they do have.
Some they do have, yeah.
Give Coyotes fans something to then say that they're going to lose against the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Right. There you go. So
yeah. And Clayton Keller's doing well again. So if you want to trade him, you have that. If you want to keep him, which I think I would do,
there you go.
Think your captain, but that's just me. If Jake Chychrun Chychrun should be your captain. He can always be an A for you, though. Let's put it that way. Yeah, because if you want to keep your leaders around, but that's just me.
Exactly.
If you want to trade him, I think many teams would like to get their hands on Clayton Keller. But
yeah, I would agree with that 100%. So the Vegas Golden Knights at home against the Kings, the 10 o'clock game.
The Kings have been an interesting team this year. They kind of been destroyed because of their defense injuries, but they've still been able to figure it out to go 5-3-2 in their last 10 and also be 14-11-5. So they've been an impressive team for me in that aspect because they obviously don't have the deepest ready NHL depth on defense, and then they got hit with injuries, had to put different guys in, and they still kind of figured it out and scratched and clawed to a couple wins. Particularly, they beat the Capitals last game, which is obviously a really good win. They beat the Panthers 4-1, and they beat the Wild 2-1. So,
yeah,
this team has some really good wins of late. It's in Vegas, one of the obviously the loudest stadiums in hockey. So I would have to go with the Vegas Golden Knights in this game. I do think it'll be a good game, though. The Kings have been in more competitive games than blowouts this year, but I definitely think Vegas will be able to get over the hump and beat them.
Quick has been part of the main reason why they've been playing really well there. And I also think, too, that LA is not quite the California team that's impressed this year. I felt that LA, the Kings, were going to be kind of on that outside looking in kind of thing, especially with the division that they're in. But I also feel that there's some other California teams that are clawing and scraping as well.
Although lately I would say LA's been better than, because San Jose's dip has actually been better of late.
Right.
The most impressive California team's Anaheim.
But. Right, exactly. That's what I'm leading to. Okay. But LA Kings have been playing better this year. I agree, but they're just not quite there yet. So I got to go Vegas on this all day.
Yeah, I would have to say Vegas. But I would say if I had to say now with the way the Sharks have dipped, the Kings would be my second team if I had to rank the California. Then the Sharks would be behind now, and then you would have obviously
after Anaheim. You would put Anaheim, and then you would put the Kings, and then the Sharks.
Anaheim, Kings, and then San Jose. Yeah, because San Jose dipped where the Kings have been playing better through their injuries the last week. Now that can change by not next week because there's no games to do that, but that can change by a couple of weeks when we do the show again. But for now, I would say that's where it's at.
Yep.
Where the Ducks are because of Trevor Zegras, which is the funniest thing. Stothers was on, who by the way, I think he won the Calder Cup with the Milwaukee Admirals, was a really good assistant here one time. If we're looking at a guy that's really good at holding his players accountable, all of his players talked about that before, but in a constructive and not a bad way that would get him in trouble or anything with, all of his players talk about how they love how they made him the best they can be in the best condition they can be. He's already had experience with the organization. Just the thought of outside of the box, maybe he would be a coach option that the Flyers would think about because he can restore a locker room he has a reputation in the AHL to be able to bring any locker room together and get the most out of anybody that he has. And all of his guys, a lot of his former players attest to that. Plus he's coaching he's right now coaching the defense of the Anaheim Ducks, who are one of the better defenses early on.
I'm with you. But here's what I think. Here's what I think the Philadelphia's going to do. I think they're gonna hire because they're gonna.
Well, then I would still try to get him because he's one of the best, in my opinion, defensive assistants Well, I don't think that it'll be hard to get him from the top.
He's a safe bet because they can basically say that it was the injuries, and we thought he did a great job with the injuries and everything that happened with the Flyers this year, and so we're going to offer him a head coaching position where, and I think there are some much better coaches out there that could help the Flyers get over the hump, that can help the Flyers get to a point where they're going to be. But I think that the Flyers basically need to do the reset button and start from the top down and start over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Yo's like 246, 181. Like, he's not terrible. Like, he started coaching at a younger age than some.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you. Yep.
Like,
I understand.
To show it where if he can get us back into a race, and even if we just miss with how terrible the first half has been, I do think he would get hired if he kind of just does solid, but we still don't like he doesn't show exactly what they want to see. Like Gordon did solid, but obviously didn't show exactly. I don't think he will get hired. I think they'll go with somebody else that's out there and available at that time. If they don't do that, if there's another struggle point in this season, because say he wants to take a couple months on, but say there's another struggle point in February and Paul Maurice is ready to coach, and you call up Paul Maurice and Paul Maurice goes, oh yeah, sure, I'll take the Philly job and try to bring this team back to the promised land.
Or Claude Julien.
Then you can do that. Yeah, Julien, we mentioned him before. So like you have different names out there that can kind of restore a locker room well. I do think Yo, though, he has the reputation of being that kind of strict, but not like similar to like in a much lesser toned down degree of how like Berube kind of can have that strict tone, but like Yo has had like the kind of the general reputation, but also is more like Greg Berube doesn't necessarily always go out of his way to compliment somebody on it, which is not a bad thing because he holds people accountable really well and he's a great coach. But Yo will kind of like he complimented Max Willman and his play early on in his career. Berube might be a coach that waits a little bit longer to compliment someone's play until they're deeper into their career. But there's no problem with either way of it. But it's just a different strategy. I feel like this is the thing with the Flyers, though, is it's hard to judge them because not that we've had a bunch of people out, but you talk about the top-down structure, but they didn't have a plan in place after they got rid of AV and his coaching staff that they've been coaching shorthanded. So we haven't only been playing shorthanded.
Right.
We've been coaching shorthanded where you've had two guys that have had to do most of the play.
I agree. And so that's why I think this whole thing is basically a big giant mess. And quite frankly, it's just sad if you ask me. It's really sad that this team is.
At this point, I'm just paying attention to how much I love Max Willman's play. The fact that
I'm trying to watch positivity in the players play.
You got Claude that's pissed, going to get to second all time and points.
Yeah. But there you go, man. I think we pretty much covered that there. What do you think?
No, yeah, we definitely covered the NHL, where for the NBA, there's unfortunately been some postponed games as well, where my Sixers joined that. There was positive COVID tests that resulted in games yesterday being postponed. But just like the NHL, it was the Sixers, Pels, Cavaliers, Hawks, and then it was Denver and Brooklyn. But just like the NHL, they say they're going to keep trucking along there. Where the NBA, because they only have Toronto to deal with, would have a little bit of an easier job to try to implement NFL-like protocols, because they would only have to convince one Canadian area that is okay. Where with the problem with the NHL that Elliot Friedman's saying is, if they want to do, like, you don't test asymptomatic people or anything like that anymore, like the NFL's, they're going to have trouble with certain provinces in Canada. Right. Where if you could get that cleared with one, which would only be Toronto, then you would be fine with the NBA.
I'm with you.
So a little, well, not a little, it makes it significantly easier. But I don't know how Toronto feels about that, so it might not be as easy. But the I think with the NBA, I think it's the right decision, obviously, to keep trucking along. But when we get into other teams, currently, similarly to how the Flyers are hard to judge, but in a different way. My Philadelphia 76ers are hard to judge too because they've had so many people on the COVID protocol, so many people in and out of the lineup.
Yeah.
It's really hard to peg where they're at. They're at 15-15 right now, still at 8th. Andrew and I did a video on them. I think there's still time for this team to recover. There's obviously things they need to add, and we talked about that in the video if you want to check that out. But, like, they also have underperformers. Like, Danny Green needs to be more consistent. Thibault's great defensively, but you would like to see him make a few threes, so he's not a liability on that end of the court. You have Milton, who's a good scorer. I think he does his job fine because he's not a three-point shooter. He's just more of an overall playmaking scorer. He does that fine. Maxey does his job fine. Embiid has been fine, but he hasn't been able to do it all. You kind of need to find that secondary guy where the one podcast that they had on NBC Sports for the Sixers was Tobias Harris's struggles are like, I forget what Zachy titled, but like Tobias Harris's struggles are a big problem. Well, I wouldn't title it that extreme because he still has scored like teens to 20s in game, but you can tell he's battling and he's not himself, where if you can get that secondary scorer back, that would be big. Where, like Andrew said, the big thing with Harris, why he's going to get bombarded, is he was never worth a supermax contract.
Right.
It's just you lost Jimmy Butler, so you kind of went crap. We have to. There's no way we can. So you had to keep him, and that's what happened there. Because we even said it on the show we did. You shouldn't be saying your supermax guy isn't the guy you want taking shots at the end of the game. We didn't say it this blunt, but like hinted at it. If you want a guy taking your shots at the end of the game, that's Seth Curry, and Seth Curry has a pretty nice contract himself. But like that should be, as a shooting guard, as a guard, or like a 3 or a 4, you should be able to, as a guy that stretches the floor a little bit, as Tobias, be somebody that you would rely on that a little bit more. But that's never really been the part of his game. We're not having that secondary, like not having another closer that's not a center, because obviously there's nothing against a B, but I said it on the Sixers show. Having your guy that's your ultimate GOAT, that's great, that can be your closer as a center, does limit you in today's game.
Exactly.
So having it only really be Curry, I think you need to. That's the biggest addition for me. You need to add more shooting, and obviously I think that's something that's going to come from whether it's a 3-team trade, whether it's a 2-team trade, whatever the heck it is. Getting Ben Simmons moved on elsewhere since it's past the date that you can trade people like him. So I think that's going to be something that they got to really focus on in order to get this team where they want them to be, because doing that will add the depth to your team. Even if it's just a guy like Buddy Yield and you add a couple like Halliburton or other guys that have skill, nobody necessarily, if Ben hits his full potential, is going to equal what Ben could equal, but he's not doing it here and he doesn't want to play here. So you got to get guys that will be on the court and be
exactly. Exactly.
So.
All right, man. Well, I'll tell you what. I think we got a lot covered. We covered a lot of the big majors. We covered a lot of great information. We put a lot of information out there for you. We got a lot of information that's going on about the World Juniors, the NHL, the NBA, and a lot of stuff that's going on in the football. And, man, I'll tell you what, another great show, man. What do you think?
That much on the World Juniors, though, so maybe if we have time before Christmas, we can hop on for a second show of the week to try to do that before the 26th, but we'll have to see.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Because we have time before that starts. We have time before that starts.
I have done videos, though, on my Sports Fanatic news page for people that want to check them out on Germany, Sweden. I almost said Switzerland, which I haven't done yet. Sweden and Finland, and also America's team, U.S. this far, where I'm going to do Canada tonight and Russia at some point, once I figure out how to pronounce 3 other people's names that I've been having trouble with for that particular club.
For sure.
But the last thing I wanted to put in this one is to cap off. Well, not to cap off. They'll have more additions once the season comes back from the lockout. But to put a stamp on an already successful offseason, the New York Mets get a manager who I think is one of the better of my lifetime in Buck Showalter, who, just like we talk about with guys that just know how to control a locker room, but still let guys be them, but kind of be a general at the same time. That's exactly what Buck Showalter is. Where even Manny Machado, who some people thought was kind of not with Showalter all the time, kind of like people say Goudreau wasn't always with Sutter, but look what he's doing now. But Chuck complimented him all but nice things to say about Showalter and said he's exactly what the Mets need. And I think, unfortunately for Phillies fans like me, I think he is exactly what as long as people stay healthy on that team, somebody that has the experience like him is not going to overuse the analytics, but still, like he's talked about when he's been on MLB Network, like, I'll use that stuff, but I'm not going to shove it down someone's throat.
Right.
I think he's a perfect pick for there. He's a guy, personally, I wanted for here. Now we have Joe Girardi, obviously, but he's now with the New York Mets. I think that's a perfect signing. He was one of my favorite managers when he was with the Baltimore Orioles. That's where I paid attention to him the most. But, yeah, he definitely was a fun guy. I remember the one game I was there, he ended up coming out to argue, and you could tell how much the fans loved him when he was in Baltimore. Plus, he got them a couple. Baltimore in this has playoffs as much as in the in the 1900s there. So that alone is going to get you loved. They haven't seen the playoffs as much as they had Earl Weaver, who has a song based around him called the Earl of Baltimore. So,
and there you have it, folks. Well, I'll tell you what, man. How about if you tell the folks where we can get a hold of you, where we can reach you, and where we can get all your great articles and all your upcoming stuff?
Yeah, you can catch some of my stuff on SteelFlyers once we get the pages loaded back up and stuff. We got all the good stuff and bells and whistles there. Also on Flyers Nitty Gritty, I just put out an article on Hayden Hodgson, who seems like kind of has the potential to be the new ECHL Wonder Boy. Lappy hinted at him himself, kind of saying he could be the next Max Willman. So that's something I put out. And then I have more articles on there. And then my Sports Fanatic News YouTube page that I put out stuff, for the World Juniors, Sixers that Andrew and I just did a video on. Did a video with Hector, a super fan of the Royals. For the Royals, just put out one with Off the Wall Hockey on the Boston Bruins and their quarterly and holiday reports. So
nice. Awesome sauce, man. Well, thank you very much for hopping on. Another great edition of the JB and Steel Show, Volume 5 already. You can follow me at SteelFlyers52 on Twitter, and you can check me out on the web at www.steelflyers.com. Thanks, Joe, very much for another great show, man. We will catch you all on the next JB and Steel Show.
Happy holidays.